Hello there and welcome. My name is Bryant. This is an Adobe Illustrator tutorial on how I did this image, this Dragon Ball Fighter Z poster, comic book style. You may have seen it on Reddit, my Patreon, or just printed out somewhere. I don't really know. Depends on the day. The benefits of Vector include being able to scale it really to any size or using it as a web graphic. So that way, for example, this is going to be on a poster, but if I wanted, I could throw it up on a billboard or print it out and put it on my car. If you want to follow along this tutorial, I'm including the master Adobe Illustrator file. That file will be available to download from my Patreon. I'll include a link. If you scroll down here, here's the file. I'll probably just include a direct link from YouTube so that if you don't want to come to the Patreon, you don't have to, and that's fine. You'll also need a trial version of Adobe Illustrator if you don't already own Adobe Illustrator. This is not a paid promotion. This is simply the program that I am using. I just Googled Adobe Illustrator trial, and you can just go to their site. I'm sure it's easy to install. If you have any issues with that, or if you want me to make a video on installing Adobe Illustrator, maybe that's the part you're stuck on. Maybe there's stuff I'm stepping over and I've missed that you need explained. Please let me know in the comments or some way. Just let me know my Patreon or whatever you can, and I'll do my best to fill in those gaps because I want to get more people making more art today as soon as I can, and today for me is probably going to be tomorrow for you. All right, well, I will give you a good 10 seconds here if you need to pause the video and go do all the things we talked about. We'll get the master AI files again and Adobe Illustrator tutorial. Once you've got that all installed, you can unpause the video and we'll move on to the next section where we'll talk about the tools we're going to use in Adobe Illustrator. And welcome back. Hopefully you have Adobe Illustrator installed and you're ready to start looking at the tools that I'll be talking about in this video. For this video, I'm going to focus only on 4 tools. We could do a whole series of videos on all the different things Adobe Illustrator has and all the different little techniques that you can do. I don't want to do that because that would take forever. So for this video, I'm going to focus on what you need to just jump in and get some stuff made. So the first thing you'll need is your pointer, and that's just your mouse. Most people will say that your mouse, your cursor, whatever it is, your basic grab and drag mouse, right? The shortcut for that's the letter V, looks kind of like it's pointing down at the screen, right? See, it's like a cursor. And its primary function is to grab and move things. So it's pretty simple. Next point. This is I think it's got an actual name. Direct selection tool. I call it the point pointer because this looks like your other pointer, except it's white, or I guess black outline instead, kind of the opposite. And it manipulates your points. The points are what we're going to be using to do everything in Adobe Illustrator because everything is done in vector and the vector uses its points to do the math. The next tool I want to talk about is going to be your text and type tool. It's pretty self-explanatory. You hit the letter T, come over here and you can just type in letters and words. Whatever it is you want to do with the text. Again, if you need a little more about the text, letter T, you can come up here. Here's your fonts. You can download new fonts if you want. A lot of fonts on the internet are free. So I recommend playing around with that a lot. You've got different versions of fonts. So like, here's bold, italic, Arial, and then you can change the size here. Or you can drag it around or whatever you'd like to do. Different things on the fonts. Also, an important note, if you go to the Windows and go to Type, Character, that'll bring up this little window here. And that has a lot of these same options, including spacing between lines. So if we wanted to, like, for example, reduce the space between these two words. I think it's this one. Yeah. See. You can squeeze them together, pull them apart. I think this, one of them does horizontal and stuff. So yeah, anyway, the next and final tool we're going to be talking about is going to be, and you probably already guessed this, the pen tool. It creates pens, or points. It doesn't create pens. The pen tool we're going to talk more about in detail as we actually start to work. So the only thing I really want you to know about the pen tool from this particular section is that the shortcut is the letter P. So anyway, I'm going to include this AI file in the master file as a link on YouTube, so you'll be able to download it and have it ready to use. This next section, we're going to be talking about the line art. and we're going to be going into details about how we're going to use the pen. So take a break, um, look at all this over, get a feel for it, play around with some of this stuff, make some letters, and come back and get ready to really dig in, because the next part is the fun part. All right, it is time to go over the pen tool. For this, we're going to actually start with not the pen tool. We're going to start with the pencil. I recommend you take out a piece of paper or take a drawing you've already done first. Draw it out, something small for the tutorial. You don't want to go too extravagant because it'll take forever. So something kind of small, and scan it to your computer and get ready to kind of learn how this pen tool works. And for this example, I am just going to use the one that I used for the image that you saw. So it's just going to be this sketch. Now, looking at this sketch, you can immediately see it's nowhere near the quality of the original image that I showed you earlier. And that's the point. Like, we're going to turn this into something a little more fun, as you've already seen. So anyway, we're going to drag it over here, get away from this artboard. You can change your artboard by clicking this artboard button and double-clicking, or just, yeah, double-clicking here, and that'll put an artboard there. I think it's single-clicking or whatever, and then deleting this other one. And so now you've got an artboard, and it's in the right spot. You don't really need to worry too much about the artboard. I just know that some people do. We're going to lock it down in place. You can go up to your layers window here, and we're going to slide this over because this is super important. And you can click the lock button, and that'll lock the layer in any sublayers it has. So you can see how this is locked and that's locked. The slightly grayer lock just means it's part of a sublayer. So if you had like this thing full of layers, you could see it, you would know it's a sublayer. There's also a shortcut for it. If you have your pointer, you can click on it and hit Control 2 on the numpad, and that will lock it in place as well. Ooh, there goes that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take this layer and we're going to give it a name. We're just going to say that this is the sketch. The layer options here are pretty self-explanatory. You can change the color, previews, dim images, lock print. We really don't care about any of that for this. So hit OK. We're going to lock it in place, and we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to call this line art. Line art. And then you could just draw on this layer directly if you'd like, but I like to be a little more organized with my art because I'm very disorganized with how I think. So I'm going to click on this button down here and create a sublayer, and I'm just going to name it line art 1, I guess. It doesn't really matter. It's entirely up to you. So this is cool, but I really need, some help with getting Goku just right. So the next step that I would do in this situation is I would open up Google, and let me get that open for you. Here you go. And I would just Google Goku, because this, I'm not trying to create or invent Goku here. Goku's not an original character of mine. I'm creating fan art for, a character that I really appreciate, and I know others do as well. So we're just going to do a quick search for Goku and just find something that looks kind of like what we like about Goku. So this is pretty cool. This is some other guy's fan art, and he did a really good job. It looks like he did it in vector possibly as well, or he's just really clean with his coloring. But we're going to copy that. We're going to borrow your art for a minute, buddy, and to help us learn. So thank you. All right, so we're going to stretch it down a little bit and drag it closer to our Goku. Zoom in. So some hotkeys too. Zooming in and out, Alt plus the wheel on your mouse will zoom in and out. And if you hold down the space bar, you can pan around your workspace. Think of your workspace here as kind of like a painter's workspace, right? So you would have like over here your different colors, and you would dip into them, and that's where I keep all my references and whatnot while I'm working. We just have the one for now. So his Goku is looking straight ahead, whereas mine's looking to the side. Now this is going to be a little bit longer of a point because I really want to drive home a few things about my own workflow that I think people might like. We're just going to kind of study and observe as we go what it is about this Goku. I've not ever seen this Goku before making this video, and I'm not going to cut this video. So if there's any blemishes from here on out, I apologize, but you've stuck with me so far. So for some reason we put Goku's line art in, or Goku's reference in the line art spot. So you see we've already made a mistake. We're just going to create a new section here for our references so that we can keep our stuff organized. And this is really important. If you ever want to do this for a job, or if you ever want to do this and get like more done with your time, you just staying organized is really important. All right. So the first thing we're going to notice, again, my Goku's kind of looking at an angle. You can see that, and his is looking straight forward. A few things to take a note is like Goku's face shape. So my Goku, if you can see, like he's got this square face, right? Like there's not much to him. Really, all you can tell is that it might be Goku. But if we come over here, this person, I really want to give them credit, but I can't remember. Seo DVD on DeviantArt did a much better job in his in creating, like you can see Goku's chin isn't sharp as a nail, and he's got this depth to his face. So we're going to try to emulate that as best we can in this video. The first thing I'm going to do is come over here and grab me a slightly less dark line art, and grab my pen tool with the letter P. Again, feel free to follow along, pause the video if you need to. I'm going to try to move at a pace that's easy to just do it as I go. So the few things we're going to start with Goku's eyebrow in Ultra Instinct mode. So it's just a solid black eyebrow. Pretty simple. The few details we're going to note. They put some detail here and it resting in this kind of little dip on your eye and your nose, like where it meets right here. And that's a really good way of adding depth to the way Goku's eye is. So I'm going to copy that, at least that idea. But my Goku's at an angle, so I can't just copy this eye. I can take that idea here. So my Goku's eye is in the wrong spot, so we're just gonna pretend it goes here, and we're gonna dip down, and again, this is kind of like where the nose and the eye meet. Like Goku's eye is gonna kind of be in this area right here, right? So we want to make sure we kind of come up this way, and then maybe we dart out, right? Because once we get that detail in, we can kind of escape and put Goku together. All right, so it's probably not as awesome as his, but that's okay because we can always fix it. He probably didn't get his right either in the first, or her, I don't know. It was a username. And then so the next step would be to just draw in Goku's eye. So Ultra Instinct is pretty cool in that it's a very basic eye, dun dun dun, up and over and out. Whereas like with Broly, he has this really big eye and stuff, and then different versions of Goku, like Super Saiyan 3, he loses his eyebrows. And this particular image, it's a pretty simple cut and dry eye, and it's really good for what we're trying to do, which is just getting some practice with this pen tool. So we're going to come over here, and you can shape this how you like. Maybe you draw eyes, maybe you're in school, and I know when I was in school, I really liked to draw anime eyes all the time, like 10 years ago when I was in high school, just because I like the way they look. So maybe this is where you can really shine, and you can take and get that detail that you've never wanted to, or never been able to put in an image, and now you can, because you've got this pen tool. Pretty basic, it looks like it's a little sharper here, so maybe I didn't need this. So it's a good way to, we can take our pointer and just kind of drag it over, add it up. We really don't want to remove detail, so we want to keep any points we have. We don't want to delete unnecessary points. Sometimes you might have to clean them up, but if you've got more detail, there's no reason to get rid of it. I'm going to take his eyebrow out a little further. Yeah, that's still wrong. Maybe there. Again, so we just messed up. We're just going to redraw an entire. So we're going to zoom out. We're going to go like this, this, and we're going to cut hard down his cheek here, and then we're going to cut right back up into this eye. And if you didn't know, I was using Control Z to undo all that stuff. It's a pretty common hotkey, but some people might not be aware. So we'll get a quick look at it. There we go. We take the sketch out. If you click these little eyeballs in the layers, you can turn them on and off. And we can already see a couple errors here. So one thing to note is this, as our reference, Goku's eye dips in. Well, if we go back and look, it's dipping out over here. So that's obviously just backwards. We'll just pull that here, kind of bring his eye up, and then this point's kind of doing its own thing down here. We're going to take off this anchor and move this point. I'm sorry, not the anchor, but the handlebar. Okay. Again, I really don't want to cut any of this, so if it's longer than you're used to or really willing to listen, I apologize, but I want you to understand that this is a process. This isn't something you just are good at and can throw together. Any artist worth their metal will take their talents to the next level and spend time growing. So if they're just throwing out quick sketches and they're super talented, that's awesome. But I I really feel like this is a refinery tool that people who don't have the natural talent can use to help express themselves in ways that's more professional and more respected. So Goku's eyes are really cool here because they're just solid and round. They got this black outline and this gray inner, or it's like a blue-gray, right? There's more detail too. He's got a pupil and a light on the ball. But we're going to focus on those first 2 points. So we're just going to make a circle. Here's the ellipse tool. If you hold down Shift, you'll get a perfect circle. We're going to go ahead and use the eyedropper tool to grab this color off of his eye. Oops, because this is our reference piece. So you hit the letter I, and that'll give you that. And we can just kind of center it in here a little bit so we can see, sorry, here, he doesn't really have it going up in it, his eyes wide open. You can do whatever you want, you can put it here. There you go. Now some people might consider the eye not line art and might move it into coloring. I just move small stuff like the eyes and maybe even the mouth into the line art, or at least some of the basic stuff. It's maybe not the mouth, certainly the eyes, because it's just easy to lose them, and you really just kind of want them tied into there. You don't really change the eyes once you get them right. Anyhow, so he's got this dark outline around it, and that's easy to do. You just click on the circle, you come down here to your stroke part of your colors, double click on that, and pick whatever color you'd like. So we're just going to use that dark gray, almost black again. Alright, so it looks like we've almost got a Goku eye. We're missing a couple key features. First of all, there's the detail under the eyebrow here. It shows that the eye is inset in his skull and not protruding from it. And we have his actual pupil with the reflection coming off of it. That'll help add depth and make it feel like he's actually looking at us and not looking through your soul. So here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is take and fix our eye color, or just our color, I guess it wouldn't be any particular color. And then I'm just going to draw a little circle here. Boop. Now, again, with eyes, it depends on what he's doing. Like my Goku is different than his, and mine's looking forward. So I might just leave it like that. His Goku's looking directly at us, so he wants this centered in his eyeball. So if you wanted the same for over here, which is not a big deal, you can click on that, click Align to Key Object when you have both objects selected, and then click on the one you want to center to. That'll be this back one, and you'll see it'll get this thicker outline that happened. And then you'll click this one, which will horizontally align it, and then this one, which will vertically align it. And there's probably shortcuts for that, but I'm okay with that. And that'll put it in the center. But we're going to go back to a little offset because our Goku's looking forward. An important note about the eyepiece here, typically, especially in anime, they make the eyes identical. They're the one like asymmetrical type thing. Like for example, like his eyebrows might be identical and mirrored on each side, but you can see the eyes are the same. And that's because your light sources are the same and round things bounce light off the same. So just something to keep in mind when you're working on this. The light doesn't care what you think as much as we'd like it to. But the better you get at understanding light, the more you can play with it. And that's really where this, I hope, takes you in life. So yeah, now we really have, it looks almost like we just have Goku's eye to play with, right? Like we can make a bigger one. And we didn't take this, guys, and steal it from him, like this reference piece. This is a JPEG, right? Like I could, and I didn't trace it, I could come over here and trace it like this and make exactly his eye. But no, that's kind of like a really strong differentiation to make between a reference piece and straight up copying somebody. Most artists are pretty cool with you looking to them for inspiration. And if they're not, that's I don't think that's very cool, but whatever. Anyhow, so the last thing we're going to do, and we're going to cut this short, is we're going to focus on this shadow right here. Now, this same process can be applied for all these colors and everything else. We're not going to redraw all of Goku today because you probably don't want to do that. I might do a video where I do a big piece and do a time lapse of it if that's something you're interested in, and maybe do some commentary over that as I do it. But now's not the time for that. So anyhow, the first thing we're going to do is find where this needs to go and make sense. So we understand that it goes under the eyebrow, but over the eye. So we find the eyebrow in our layers section over here, and we find the eyeball. Now we can name these again. So eyeball makes it easier to remember. Eye, that's like the line art for the eye. I think this is his pupil. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's his pupil. And let's see. Oh, yeah, and that's his eye highlights. I misspelled highlights, but I don't care. So we're going to take this layer, and we're going to name it eye shadow. And we're going to move it in between the eyeball and underneath the eye, right? And that's where it's going to go. And so it's really easy to do shadows. It's whatever color it is, a little darker, right? So this is white, so it's really simple. You just come into here, and you just drag this down to a little bit less white. And now you've got your shadow. You come into here, and you put it into place. Now the shadows are always really smooth. You don't want sharp shadows, unless, of course, you're working with like buildings, blocks, you know, stuff that have very precise 90-degree corners that create those sharp shadows. Otherwise, you want to avoid sharp shadows. You know, you want to stick to with like these fleshy and you know, like your eyeballs round. So you want to make it feel very natural feeling. And we're just going to do this and put it under there. It looks like his eyeball is a little, the color's in the wrong spot. So that's another thing we're going to fix here. And that's really easy to fix. So we're going to, this is a little trick. This is a little bonus for you. We're going to come to our eyeball and we're going to take this outline off of it. Okay. And we're going to take the eyeball and move it over the shadow. Right? The next thing we're going to do is take our eyeball. We're going to hit Control C, Control, and then Control B. And that's going to put... Oh, apparently we can't do that. Control... Yeah, okay, so we can't do it. Control B. Control V is paste. Control B is paste behind. And then we're going to give this backside a stroke here. Just 1 pixel. And there we go. What you really want to do for this, you can do there's a couple other options. You can take this and just create a transparent layer over top of it. So if you just want to take this and turn it totally to black, right? And you wanted to go to your transparency window and turn it down to like 18%. That will create a shadow, like a legit shadow. That has its drawbacks and it has its benefits. The drawback is when you use it with shadows over top of shadows, because if I take this same shadow, right, and let's say there's another shadow, I want to pull it down his eye right here, okay? It's not going to look right, and you'll see what happens. As we create our shadow, we're going to close it off here, and then we open up the transparency options for that shadow. Can you see the problem? I'll give you a second, just to kind of figure it out on your own. And if it isn't apparent, it's this corner right here. These two opacity levels blend on top of each other. So the corner of his eye is darker now because this isn't necessarily two shadows, but it's because we're drawing it like it's two shadows. It's treating it like two shadows, and it's drawing it incorrectly. So if we were to do that here, you know, it would have looked, it wouldn't have looked as good as it does now. So what we would have had to have done is instead drawn the gray from here to here, and then for this part, taken this green that matches the shadow and drawn over it, because you want your opacity, like the light that your image has, to match the light of the shadows. You know, like you don't want this green to be the wrong shade because you didn't match it up correctly with the intensity of the light that you had before. But again, it's all subjective. It's all your art. You like it, it's done, it's great, it's wonderful. And that's all that matters. So this has gone on a little longer than I'd hoped, but I really hope that it has been helpful. And let me know if there's anything else I could do better, and if there's anything else you'd like me to try and teach. I'd like to extend a great thank you to my friend Zach Parrish for doing that incredible intro you heard at the beginning of this video. I had the great opportunity of working with Zach for 2 years directly, and you might have heard of Zach. He did the soundtrack for Valdis Story on Steam, as well as Wishmere, and as I believe he has a few other projects you might check out. If you just want to listen to more of his music, please check out his SoundCloud and join me in congratulating both him and his wife Alex, as they are both expecting a baby boy in the near future. So congratulations both Zach and Alex, and thank you once again for that incredible intro.